That's where I know that when you don't deal with trauma, it will manifest itself in illness. And little did I know that rejection often is God's protection and redirection.
Hey guys, welcome to the Something New show where we like to learn how to live a life worth celebrating. And I'm Mindi Linscombe, your host, here with today's guest, Amy Lacey, who flew in from Melbourne, Florida, just to be on today's episode.
I feel so honored.
Thank you for making the time to come across the country to be here in the studio.
It's amazing. Everybody should come visit you.
It's so fun.
Can I just open that invitation up to everybody? I'm not kidding. This is amazing.
Well,
it's an Instagram worthy shop and the whole place is just so beautiful.
Thank you.
It's got a lot of good energy.
Thank you. I have a good team and that's what makes the energy in my mind really good. Yeah. You know, because people make the place.
Absolutely.
I can make it cute and everything else, but the people.
People are everything.
They're everything. So, okay, Amy Lacey and I met about a year ago, maybe around there.
Yeah.
We were in a mastermind together, still are, and lots of idea sharing between the two of us, lots of fun collaboration of, oh, what if, how could this work? And I'm just so fascinated by your story. I look to you almost like a big sister in business because you're just a little bit down the road, a little bit older, just your kids are about, the leaving the nest.
I'm a lot older, but yeah.
Yes, okay. But I'm just saying it is really awesome to have you here because I think, while some people may look to me as their big sister, I'm always like, hey, I have big sisters too. I have people that I'm high-fiving and celebrating and like, wow, I'm going to read a little bit about you. And I know that you're going to probably be like, oh my gosh, this is too much, but I need to read it for people to know.
Well, one thing I want to say on that of how we met, I think it's so important. It's one of my pieces of advice that I give on podcasts. People need to put themselves in rooms with people that have done things bigger and better. And I really believe, and I've always done this for the last at least 15 years, always been in a mastermind every year. Wow. And sometimes the same mastermind. Because that's where the growth happens. You've got to pour into yourself in order your business will reflect that. You grow yourself personally, your business will reflect it. Anyways, I just want to add that.
I agree. I've grown.
And then you get to meet amazing people like you and end up in this beautiful place. And now I'm on your podcast.
It's so fun. I'm thankful too that both of us just happen to be in the same place, same time, and, doing different things, but absolutely same mindset. I think we're both in the position of like, what else can we learn? How can we continue to grow and be better? So let me just read this bio because you guys are going to kind of buckle up for this. You are a serial entrepreneur, innovator, best-selling author, keynote speaker, and business mentor. And in 2016, after being diagnosed with lupus, you launched Cali'Flour Foods and introduced the very first cauliflower pizza crust to the market when only a head of cauliflower could be found in grocery stores. The brand took the food industry by storm, going from farmers markets to grocery stores across America and spearheading what would become a $1 billion industry category.
It's a category, yeah.
I know, it's a whole category now. And then in 2019, which is just 3 years later.
I know.
Can we just highlight that? You sold the majority of your cauliflower ownership and became one of the top 4% of women business owners to exit a company with an 8-figure deal. High five to that.
In the food industry, especially. There weren't a lot of female founders back then.
No. And now you're on a mission, and I'm really excited about your mission, to trailblaze the path towards a brand new innovative health and wellness product for your new company, Soursop Nutrition by Be Me, which we'll talk about in a little while, highlighting one of the world's greatest superfoods, that most people don't even know exists, Soursop. And can't wait to get into that. So maybe I'll pause here because the rest of this is all really opening up the door for all the benefits of Soursop. But really, let's just talk about the fact that you were a mom with 3 kids, get diagnosed with lupus, and then decide to try something in your kitchen with cauliflower.
Yeah, so let me take you back a little bit.
Okay.
So I was accidentally conceived. So I'm going to get a little deep here. with my childhood, because it really does. I can look back now and the dots all connect. And it's something I've only recently started sharing because I never saw the connection.
Wow.
But so my mom actually tried to abort me. In 1970 is when I was born. Abortion was illegal. And my dad talked her out of it. And so my dad married my mom. But after 2 years, my mom left him because he was an alcoholic and then eventually a drug addict. So my mom was a single mom, and it was tough. It was really hard. So, you know, without going into great detail about that, eventually I was in a foster home for a short time. I eventually landed in a farm in Gaston, Oregon, and then back with my mom. So the reason why I share that story now is because when I got married, I used to pray for a family before I even knew who God was. And when I got married and had kids, and I've been married 26 years and I have 3 kids, like you said, I started to research and take all the parenting classes I could because I didn't have an example really of what it was like to have a family. And so I started these traditions, and one of them was Friday night family fun night, which included pizza, usually garbage pizza, like from Domino's, whatever the kids wanted, and board games or movies. And so one Saturday morning, I couldn't get out of bed, and my body was attacking itself. And it was basically inflammation attacking my body. I wasn't able to walk. I got really, really sick. And without taking too much time, I ended up on steroids, Plaquenil, which was the drug that everybody was talking about during COVID. And then I became really depressed. So I was on an antidepressant. I was on total 5 meds. My youngest was only 2 years old, and I couldn't pick him up. So I lived in Northern California. He went to stay with my in-laws, which was clear across the country in Virginia. So as a mom, Mindi, you know, as all the moms out there, that's a rock bottom moment when you can't take care of your own family, especially when I cherish that I even had a family because I didn't know what that was growing up.
Wow.
So I made it my mission to figure out how to heal myself by using food as medicine, which is really difficult because our food industry in the United States is, I call it corrupt, and I'll get more to that later. But what I've learned recently over the last 5 years is that the trauma that I experienced as a 12-year-old, that manifested itself when I was 40 into lupus and Sjogren's, which is what I woke up one day having, like literally overnight, was so sick. And so to bring those traditions back, I needed to learn how to eat differently. And I was looking for a way to bring back pizza night and board games. And I found this pizza recipe on Rachel Ray, cauliflower pizza crust. And so I made it. It was an epic failure. I figured out how to make it and make it successful. And then I started sharing it with friends and family.
Like your new recipe.
Yeah, like a new recipe. But we tweaked Rachel's recipe, Rachel Ray's recipe, and we made it our own. And I started sharing it, and I had like friends and family and friends of theirs that were like type 2 diabetics, or a couple people had cancer, different things like that. They were put on a low carb diet. They started eating my pizza, and somebody convinced me to take it to farmers market. And then I had e-commerce experience because I had had an e-commerce business prior to this. And I thought, well, it's fully cooked. Let me try putting it on e-commerce and see how it does. And honestly, the margins were horrific. It wasn't doing well. I was going through our savings. We were negative $269,000. And one day I got down on my hands and knees, and my husband was asleep. And I was looking at him, and I was on my hands and knees, and I was like, God, you need to either make this business super successful or you need to shut it down, because I can't go into our 401k and our investments like it's negative $269,000. Our margins are horrific, but the letters I get and the people I know that it's helping is making me want to continue on with it. Mm-hmm. It's like Rory Vaden says, you're best to serve the person you once were. And that's what I was doing. I was serving people that were really sick and they could eat pizza again.
Yeah.
And I was able to start our family tradition again. And so I had a dream that night, and I never remember my dreams. And I dreamt share Jesse's story. Now, go back a year. Jessie is a single mom of 4 kids. So single moms, near and dear to my heart. I can totally relate. Her youngest child, Kenzie, was diagnosed with autism, and she was severely autistic. She was nonverbal. And Jesse said, the doctor just put her on a low-carb diet. Is it possible for you to send me your pizza crust? She lived like an hour away. So we ended up sending pizza crust up there for free for months, And one day Jesse goes, you need to come visit me. I have a surprise for you. When I went up there and she opened the door, I about fell over because Kenzie wouldn't eat unless Jesse sat down with her, and they were eating 2 of our crusts a day, using them for different things. Jesse had lost 90 pounds. And Kenzie ran up, gave me a hug, and said, thank you. She was talking, and she was going to get to go to public school. So I was really excited, and I took pictures that day. And so fast forward, I have a dream about Jesse, and it's like share Jesse's story is my dream. So I call the one employee I have, because I only have one employee at that time, and I tell her, we're supposed to share Jesse's story. And she says, well, you better call Jesse. So I call Jesse and
get permission.
I get permission, and I tell this story because it was so funny. I remember it like it was yesterday. Jesse's like so excited. She's like, I will be the Jessie of Cali'Flour Foods, like the Jared of Subway without the perversion. And she was so excited about it. And I'm like, okay. So I tell Jimmy, who is my right-hand person, my one employee, female, spelled like Jimi Hendrix. So Jimmy, let's share Jesse's story. So we put it on Facebook, and it went viral. And in January, I had that dream January 3rd of 2017. End of the year of 2016, negative 269,000. Shared that story January 6th. By the end of January, we had sold more pizza crusts online than we had the entire year of 2016, including Farmers Market.
Oh my gosh.
And by the end of 2017, using StoryBrand and sharing stories, other people's stories, we use Donald Miller's StoryBrand. So if you have a business out there, I suggest looking at his book. And by the end of 2017, we'd done 5.3 million in pizza sales. So God answered a prayer, and he made it happen. And we changed countless lives. It was never about the money to me. It was more about who can we impact. And so diabetics were able to eat pizza again. Because remember, the only thing in the grocery store was Udi's, and that was not good for you.
High sugar.
Oh,
too.
just terrible.
Yeah, really.
Lots of fillers. Mm-hmm. And so I can remember, and I think of Pretty Woman, that movie, big mistake, huge, big. In 2017, I decided, okay, I need to take this to the masses and get it in grocery stores, constantly getting no's. And I always think no is next opportunity. It's always next opportunity to me.
I see it as not yet.
Or not yet. Yeah. But people were like, are you kidding? Cauliflower is like the last veggie standing on a veggie tray at a party. We don't even sell that much cauliflower in our grocery store. There is no way we're doing a cauliflower pizza. And now today it's $1 billion category. So I think about those early distributors that were.
You want to walk in and be like, big mistake.
Big, huge.
Oh my gosh.
Excuse me.
I can see you doing it.
Yeah. So, I mean, it grew very fast, and we were coming off the kale kick, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be like kale. It's going to rise in popularity and then die off. And it still is very popular.
Oh, yeah.
Because cauliflower takes on whatever flavor you want with it. So,
well, the rice, you could do so much with cauliflower now. Yeah.
So it helped so many people. God answered my prayer. The next year, 2018, we did over 20 million in sales. We were the #1 pizza crust. So not just frozen, not just cauliflower, but we beat out Boboli, Mama Mary's. We were the #1 on Amazon for 16 months straight. And we ended that year selling a pizza crust every 5 seconds online. And then tragedy struck again at the end of 2018. I lived in Northern California. So Northern California became on fire, literally. And it burned down, this campfire burned down a town called Paradise, California. The entire town burned down. And that's where my mom, who remarried my stepdad, and my aunt, who had no kids, lived. And they were in my house because they had to be evacuated. Now, the blessing is their homes didn't actually burn down, but they couldn't go back to live there because there was no running water, no electricity. So they were in my house. And I saw that as a sign from God, because I had been getting offers for my company, and Nestle had me out to speak at their corporate event. And I saw it as a sign from God that it was time to take up one of those offers so I could help my family, because nobody had any money. And so I sold to some venture capitalists in Boulder, Colorado, right down the street from you.
Wow.
Yeah. And and then I moved everybody out of Northern California to Florida.
So instead of fires, you now have hurricanes.
I know. And here's my defense to that. You have a warning with hurricanes. You can prep. You have no warning with a fire. And that was a very scary fire.
Trust me, I would love to live in Florida. I'm just saying it's funny because, wherever you live, there's something.
Everybody says that to me, so it is true. But that was just a really crazy moment for me, because I was actually at a Mosaic event with Erwin McManus down in Southern California when I got the call that the fire had happened. And so I flew out of Southern California, which was also, Malibu was on fire at the same time. So when I flew up, I could see fires down below. And when I landed in Sacramento, California, it was 2:00 in the afternoon, but it was pitch black, because that's an hour and a half away from Paradise. But that fire was...
The smoke.
Yeah. It was pitch black, and we were wearing N95 masks for months, and the kids were out of school because of it before COVID ever hit.
Wow.
So it was a crazy time.
So you exited the company, it felt right. You move your family. You're kind of like, okay, let's kind of take a little pause.
Well, let me backtrack, because the night that we were closing the deal, it did not feel right. And this would be a tip, I would say. If ever in your gut it doesn't feel right, you need to really listen to that. And that night, my advisors were saying, do not sign this deal, because they changed the deal at the last minute. But my family was saying, sign it, because it meant so much.
And wrap it in. They're probably ready. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I had been the CEO, and at one point the CMO and the COO, and I had been traveling a lot. And I think they were ready for that, that to be done. But
you're saying in your gut, you just knew.
In my gut, I knew it wasn't the right decision. And I really didn't understand what it meant for a venture capitalist to purchase the company. And it means they might say something like, we're never going to change the recipe. You're always going to be on the board, and we'll always have your team here. But in reality, they fired my team. They changed the recipe, and they put me on sabbatical. And during sabbatical, they changed all my passwords. And they own the majority of the company, so they could do that. But then I went through, it was almost like a 360 moment that I felt such rejection again, almost like I felt as a child, that rejection. And that's where I know that when you don't deal with trauma, it will manifest itself in illness. And I felt that depression like I felt as a teenager, that rejection. And little did I know then, or as a child, that rejection often is God's protection and redirection. And so I didn't realize that's what it was, but I knew enough that I knew I needed to get into counseling.
Running a successful bridal shop can be challenging, but with the right support, it can also be incredibly rewarding. Hi, I'm Mindi Linscombe, founder of Bridal Owner Success School, aka BOSS. After 17 years in the bridal industry, I've developed proven strategies that drive both positivity and profitability in your business. Through BOSS, you'll receive insightful coaching, time-tested frameworks, and a community of bridal shop owners dedicated to helping each other succeed. Ready to boost your profitability and find more energy in your business? Visit bridalownersuccess.com and sign up for BOSS today.
And so I took that time during my sabbatical to go through trauma work, forgiveness work. I needed to forgive my mom for a lot of things. And it was very healing. And I was able to do EMDR and different counseling to deal with the trauma that I dealt with as a 12-year-old. And
was it weird also, just curious, because I do wonder, when you're wrapped up into something like a big mission like that, and then to all of a sudden be done, is it a little bit like jarring, like shock?
I had my dream home, plenty of money. My kids are thriving in Florida. Everything's going great, and I am miserable because I didn't know who I was. I wrapped my whole identity up in that business, and I lost myself. So it was really good that I forced myself to go into counseling. I went into a program for 16 months, and it was an intensive outpatient program. And I'm blessed that I had the means to be able to afford to do that, and it changed my life. And during that time, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer, and so was my right-hand person, Jimmy. And that's how I discovered Soursop. I happened to be in a room with somebody sitting next to me, and we start sharing our stories. And she was using Soursop for her daughter who had cancer, getting it shipped in from the Caribbean. And I was telling her how I took a vegetable that wasn't popular and made it popular. And I thought, wow, let me try a Soursop for my mom. And
you're like, if I can do a vegetable, I can do a fruit.
Well, I wasn't thinking that at that time. I just wanted to anything. I was grasping for anything
to
because
help.
Yeah, because I say this really with a lot of sensitivity because my mom was going full Western medicine, so chemo, radiation, and Jimmy was not. And I'm somewhere in between. Like I see the benefit of Western medicine, but I also see the harm that it can do as well. And so I saw Soursop as like a light at a time when it seemed very dark, and it helped my mom tremendously. And it also helped me with inflammation because going through all of that, I was struggling with inflammation again, and I was getting sick again. And I think a lot of it was the stress that I put on myself of mourning the loss of that company.
Yeah.
And so I discovered this fruit, but it was extremely expensive. It's like $15.99 a pound, difficult to get. And so I'm like, how can I make this where others can benefit from it too?
And more accessible.
More accessible. Yeah. So often when I'm on stage, I talk about trauma therapy and how important it is, as well as forgiveness. So any of your listeners out there, if you've dealt with anything like that, and trauma can come in so many different ways. It can be a teacher that said something to you in junior high that impacted you. It doesn't have to be like a major physical event. It can be anything that you buried down or that you felt shame about, and eventually it will manifest itself into an illness. So your body will reflect what you bury and don't deal with. So it's important to deal with it.
And you highly recommend the trauma therapy, like specifically?
I do for my particular situation, which included an assault that I dealt with at 12 when I was out, not necessarily on the streets, but I wasn't in a home base. And so, yeah, I had to deal with that. Each time my kids turned 12, it all came up again.
Wow.
Which I didn't even recognize at the time. So, yeah, so I feel like the rejection I felt from the venture capitalists was God's way of redirecting me and protecting me and getting me the help I truly did need. And that opened up again. It's like the mastermind. You're pouring into yourself. You're helping yourself in ways that you grow so you can help others. And you need that growth.
And then tell me a little bit about your journey with forgiveness.
So when you become a parent, you start realizing what you didn't have as a child, or you realize what your parent didn't do. Like, nobody read stories to me, and I love reading stories every morning to my kids. When they were little, that was like our cuddle time and story time, and then before bed. Nobody took me to church. We didn't have family meals. Often I ate whatever, fish sticks or rice cereal or whatever we had in front of the TV. Like, there wasn't these family meals, and there wasn't nutrition, and there wasn't vacations and things like that. So, yeah, I took a lot of parenting classes, but as I became a parent and I started doing those things, I started resenting the fact that I didn't have those growing up. And I started thinking about my mom. And I've learned so much because my mom was a rager. So what that means is she would come home from work and I never knew what I was going to get. So a lot of times she would rage and then she would cry and apologize. And what I've learned about raging is it's not anger. It's being fearful and not having control. And I think she felt that as a single mom. And my grandmother, I loved her. She's passed away since, but my grandmother was, you made your bed, you lay in it kind of mentality to my mom. So there was no support there. And then my dad, my biological dad, who's no longer on the earth, he didn't support her. So she was all alone until she married my stepdad, who has been phenomenal.
So how would you tell someone to identify, maybe if they are unaware that they need to work through some forgiveness, what would be some signs?
Well, I mean, again, I think you have to see what your body's doing. And if you're sick a lot, if you have inflammation, a lot of that can come from buried down either shame, anger, not dealing with your emotions. And you can tell if you have inflammation. You can have just your hands can be more inflamed, things can hurt. I think you have to listen to your body because it will manifest itself in some kind of illness if you don't deal with it. And it took, the majority of my stuff happened at 12, and I was 40 years old when my body basically turned on itself. And so I think forgiveness is a choice, but healing is a process. And I think that healing process looks different for each person. For me, it meant faith-based counseling, 9 hours a week for 16 months. I mean, it was a lot of EMDR, but a lot of forgiving myself in order for me to be able to forgive others.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's quite an investment in your...
But you forgive for yourself. I know that sounds selfish, but you have to forgive for yourself so that you don't hold animosity and anger for the person that you think hurt you, because that can become your obsession. And for a short time, I was very obsessed with what the venture capitalists had done to the company and what they did to me personally and what they did to my team. And I had to let all of that go in order to grow and be able to start a new business. Mm. So if anybody's dealing with anything of betrayal or they're holding any kind of anger towards a person or a situation or even themselves, it's so important to learn forgiveness. And it releases a lot of anxiety too. I used to have a lot of anxiety and I don't anymore.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's amazing.
That's a lot. I just like,
that's amazing.
I just like vomited all this information out.
I love it. No, but that's really amazing to see you work through that. And what I was starting to say is just like, it's quite an investment into your personal health. You know what I'm saying? Like to do 9 hours a week for 16 months. Mm-hmm. Not very many people are quick to say, oh, sign me up for that. But yet they want to fast forward to the results.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying you really did you buckled up and put your time in.
Yeah. And it was emotional, very emotional and exhausting. So on EMDR days, which includes like tapping. And I remember the first time I did it, I'm like, this is so woo-woo. This isn't going to work. Like, this is not going to work, but it actually does. It allows you to put yourself outside the situation of the trauma and be like a third party looking at yourself in that situation. And you think differently about the situation as a third party.
Interesting.
Yeah, it sounds narcissistic a little bit, but it's not. And I just remember coming home and being exhausted and having to take a nap after each one of those sessions. And for a long time, I didn't admit this because to me, I used to think counseling was a weakness. No, I think everybody should have counseling. Even when you think you're super healthy, I think counseling is such a good thing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're...
but I love like what we said this weekend, and I believe this too.
Tell me.
I think counseling is a way to rehash the past and maybe forgive yourself or somebody you need to forgive. Whereas life coaching is a way to move forward. And I'm all about the life coaching process because you want to move forward in life. You don't want to keep looking back. It's like that rear view analogy on a car.
Yeah.
Like you got to move forward.
Yeah. Agreed.
But you can move forward so much faster when you forgive and move beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I love to share is, I was in a deep, deep depression. And the way to get out of depression is to serve others because you get out of thinking about yourself and you start thinking about other people. And you're always going to be able to meet somebody that had it worse than you, you know? So serving others really helped me. And right after this all happened, COVID hit. So I started a business called Brick and Mortar to Click and Order. And I started helping businesses that were having to shut down go online. And then I also did a Warrior Women's event. And those events really helped me get out of the funk and the depression and stop thinking about myself so much and think about others.
It's amazing. Well, and I mean, that's clearly your mission in your next company you started. Because you have your sister, or not your sister, your right-hand girl and your mom fighting cancer. And you're looking for this, you heard about this miracle fruit. And you're like, how can I make this serve these ladies with cancer to help them? I mean, it must have done something to help them because you made a company and you're like, this really does.
Right.
Like, how did it help them?
Well, first of all, I have to make a disclaimer. I cannot promote it for cancer for any ways, but I do recommend like doing your own research. If you know somebody that has cancer and you're interested in looking at the products, do your own research. For example, there was a WebMD article that was just released in April of 2024, April 20th of 2024. It's a great peer-reviewed article on how the fruit and how the leaves actually make an impact and what it actually does. But I can't promote it for that because I'll be shut down in a heartbeat. So we just share the scientific data that's out there for that. But for them, I saw huge results. In particular for my mom, she ended up getting another lump underneath in her lymph nodes, in her armpit. And that went away. I was in innovation mode. So I had different products and we just loaded her up. And, you know, I think that helped. For the girl that I met that shared about what Soursop was doing for her daughter had a type of cancer that was causing lesions on the back of her throat. And I don't mean to be like, I don't know, gross or anything, but she also was getting rectal lesions. And so she was not wanting to eat because it was hurting to swallow and then it was hurting coming out the other end. And so her mom was making tea out of the leaves and it literally healed those lesions. And so everybody in the children's cancer ward was having, like, all the moms were like, can you make us some? So she started making the tea. And originally I actually said to her, we should do this business together. But for various reasons, it didn't turn out that way. But she and I talk all the time. And I mean, she's such an inspiration. Her daughter's such an inspiration. And we go beyond the leaves. But yeah, she's had tremendous success. So we talk about cell regeneration and what it does for that, and gut health and inflammation. And it's got mass amounts of vitamin C. So it's definitely an immunity booster, which is great right now when people are starting to get sick because of the seasons changing. Mm-hmm. So
it's inflammation, like you said.
Inflammation, yes, that's huge because everybody suffers from inflammation. I don't care how great a shape you are. Everybody has inflammation, especially in the United States because of the food we eat. I mean, if I
talk about the food industry for just a second.
I was going to say, can I talk about the food industry for a moment? Okay, there are 11 big brands that own 70% of our products that you see on the grocery shelves. And you need to do your due diligence when you're using a product because the United States still allows a lot of like dyes and ingredients that are just known to be super harmful. And you're seeing a lot on the internet now. People are exposing companies like Kellogg's, you know, for their cereal and the harm it's doing. And the interesting thing is these same companies in other countries don't put the same ingredients that they do in the United States because we allow it. For example, the FDA allows a 20% variance on your food ingredients, like what you claim. So these products can have 20% more sugar. They can have 20% more hydrogenated oils. I mean, whatever you're reading on the label, just count 20% more because I know the big brands are utilizing that FDA variance. And you can Google it and see the FDA allows that. So for me, the way that I choose products, especially new products that I'm not familiar with, I will look at who created that product. Who's the founder behind it? So like Siete was just purchased by Pepsi. Siete is a family-owned brand. She came up with the products because she needed to be gluten-free. The story is great. I resonate with that story. I've met that family at Expo West. It's a great family. If Pepsi doesn't change the ingredients to make it cheaper to mass produce, that product is phenomenal. But somewhere deep inside of me, I'm fearful that Pepsi's going to change the ingredients to make it cheaper for them, so the margins are better. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens a lot. So you have to look at who's the founder, why did they create that product, what are the ingredients in it, and then look at the big companies that are buying them and see if they've altered the ingredients at all. Is really key. Because I don't know if it's Pepsi or Kellogg's. I need to research that. It's one of them. I think it's Pepsi. Owns one of the diabetic drugs. So how crazy is that? That they own a diabetic drug and yet their products are causing diabetes. And so, it's a big hot topic now.
Well, it's kind of like pay one hand to pay the other.
Yeah, exactly. So we see right now kids your kids' age are developing type 2 diabetes. That never happened in the past. And now we have this new thing called type 3 diabetes, which is Alzheimer's, which again is just food messing up our brain. I mean, literally, it's just... It is crazy. So,
that's crazy.
So we all need to be cautious of that. And I don't know, I'm kind of inspired to make it my mission to be a bigger voice about the corruption of the food industry. My daughter studied in Italy for a year. And when I owned Cali'Flour, I actually brought back cauliflower pasta from Italy that we sold in Walmart and different stores, and then cauliflower crackers. They no longer exist. Venture capitalists shut that down. But you could eat those, and you could eat a pizza in Italy and not have inflammation. And it's because they don't allow what we allow in our flour.
Those ingredients.
Yeah.
I've heard that from numerous people that are gluten-free, but then they go to Italy, they can eat the gluten. They can eat and not have an issue. Yeah. And I think that is crazy. It's because we don't have the same ingredients in our...
Yeah, in Europe, they don't allow... Caroline, my daughter, she's always saying, Mom, after college, I'm moving to Europe because I know it's so much healthier. But it's true. There is a list of ingredients that we allow in the United States that they will not touch.
That's crazy.
So yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say, so for me as a founder, it's really important that my ingredients are very clean. And with the cauliflower, we were 5 ingredients or less, but we had all these people come out with cauliflower pizza crust. Even Oprah had her cauliflower pizza crust. And you might as well have eaten a Domino's pizza. It was better for you. So it's just you can't let the marketing of these big giants distract the reality of what's in the product. So for Soursop, there's all kinds of supplements now out. We were the first. There's tons of them. And they're getting a lot of processed Soursop out of China, which is really highly processed. And I don't even know how much of the Soursop, the benefits are actually in that. But I can tell you it's not good for you. Whereas we're sourcing it from Brazil, which is why the color of our product is a little off.
Well, and, just to your point, I think a lot of people start with an idea, start with a product, and you did. And then there's going to be iterations of it. Mm-hmm. But you're saying focus on the true ingredient list, focus on the saturation. And even if there's different iterations, like Soursop coming out of China, maybe that's not exactly going to be as nutritious in your supplement base as getting it from Brazil or whatever you're doing straight from the fruit.
Yeah, and I think it's important to look at the founder or the person behind the brand because they typically have a story. If they don't have a story of why they created that brand, why did they create that brand? Is it just, there's not a lot of regulation on supplements. So are they just creating it because they want to make a quick buck? Because I can guarantee you a lot of them are that way. Or do they have a story behind it and they feel so passionate about what it did to serve them that they want to share it with the world? I want to leave a legacy. And when people talk about leaving a legacy, I want to leave a legacy of products that have truly changed people's lives and that leave a stamp of goodness, not what 70% of our products are currently in the United States. So I just think it's so important to look at what the founder's story is, not just the founder.
So good. Okay. We do have a couple minutes left, and I want to hear. You said last night in my car, you said, I have a few business things that I'd love to leave with your audience.
Okay.
I'm like, yes, give it to us. Give it to us, Amy.
So if your audience, if you all have a website out there, there's a couple things that I got zinged on when Cali'Flour became really popular. And they're basic things. They have nothing to do with the food industry. But for example, your website needs to be handicap compliant. Mm-hmm. And so is yours?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're on it. I didn't know that was a thing when we created Cali'Flour's website.
Yeah.
And so we got zinged, and I think I had to pay a fine of almost $15,000.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So now the other thing that you need to do with your website is you need to own your own fonts. Do you know that as well? So if you don't own your own fonts, when you become popular, the font troll, as I call them, will find you and they'll buy your font and then they'll sue you. So you have two choices. You can rebrand everything with a new font, which is very expensive, or you can pay them the $12,000 fine that they're going to charge you for it, and then they'll give you your fonts. So buy your fonts. It's like $300 to own your fonts. I
do think we have our own font.
If you have a really good, we were scrappy with Cali'Flour. We did it all ourselves internally, so we didn't know any better.
We did at the beginning too, but like somewhere along the line, we hired professionals and got
and
it
they
all.
know this. Yeah. If you have a professional that doesn't know this, fire them. The professionals will know this. But for all those startups that are just getting started and they're trying to do it on themselves, Google how to make your website handicap compliant. Google how to buy your fonts, and just do it. It'll save you. When you become popular, all these things will come out. So that's huge. The other thing that we did that took us viral, and we're still using it today, is StoryBrand. And I mentioned it briefly. There's a lot of different types of people out there teaching how to tell your story. I personally like Donald Miller's StoryBrand. He has a podcast. You can listen to it. You can buy his book. I'm not trying to say you don't need to take his course, but you will get a lot out of those two things. And he basically teaches you how to make your customer the hero using your products and not your products the hero. Like, so many people will just talk about their products and will never mention the benefits by using testimonials.
Jesse
was StoryBrand all the way by accident.
Yes, before you knew.
Yes. And then the final thing, and I was telling you guys about this last night, and I think it helps a lot. You know, as a startup, we're on a tight budget and we can't afford to, hire a bunch of people to do a bunch of things in the beginning. I'm such an advocate for email. Like, build your email list, collect emails, because I've had social media sites shut down and you lose all those people, but you'll never lose your emails. You own those. So one of the ways, like, people get overwhelmed by emails, like, how do I write it? I need a copywriter. How do I strategize? So one of the things I was talking to you about this last night of how to use AI without it sounding AI is we use AI to write our emails, but in my voice. So you tell AI a little bit about your company, and then you ask AI to ask you 25 to 50 questions that AI is going to ask you about your business. And then you plan to take a couple hours to answer those as authentically and as much as you can put in detail into those answers. And then the key is to go back to that page where you've answered them and ask AI to write your emails based on that, because they'll use your voice. And there's apps out there where people can plug in an email and see if AI wrote it or a human. And if you do this, it will say a human wrote it, but really AI is writing it in your voice.
So interesting.
And you can use that for ads, to create emails, any kind of marketing tools, because it'll know your voice.
There's so much positive, amazing things happening with, I know people are scared of AI.
They are.
But I'm like, you know what? It's here. It's been here, and if we don't use it to help us, and I'm not advocating for everything being AI, but I'm just saying there are some things to use it for that are really beneficial. And then I just think it's like 20 years ago, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, is Facebook gonna be weird? Like, should I put my pictures on Facebook?" Yes. And now I'm like, nobody's scared of it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think that we need to catch up with the times and not be afraid of it, but use it with integrity, use it for the right things. I want to teach my kids a little mini course on it. because I'm like, it's going to be a part of their life 100%. So we got to be a little bit more in the know instead of avoiding it.
And your membership, everybody should do their membership, by the way. I got to see it last night. I'm like, I want to join your membership, and I don't even have a bridal salon, but I do. I seriously want to. You should do the AI cheat sheet, include that, and do a little episode on AI. You probably have had episodes on AI, but that cheat sheet is really good.
It's coming in first quarter.
Okay, perfect. You need to do that. So you need to join her.
Thank you, Amy. Well, we all want to try your Soursop product. So your team, actually, you didn't even mention, but your team went ahead and said, hey, let's give our Something New audience 20% off your site, anything and all of your products, which is a huge giveaway. I'm like, that's so generous of you guys.
Well, thank you. And we have new products coming. We have electrolytes coming and a skincare line coming. So that's really goodness. Cool.
Well, me and my kids, we love your gummies.
Thank you.
We eat your gummies. It's hard to just eat a couple.
Yeah, you can eat as many as you want. Even though it says 2 each.
They're like little gummy bears to me, but and my
they're
kids,
so good for you. It's just fruit.
Yeah, it's just fruit.
And echinacea,
they
elderberry.
love your gummies. So
good for you.
Anyways, if you guys go to her website, which is
so the best way to go to it right now is soursopnutrition.com, and it'll transfer you over to the Be Me, I Love Be Me site. Soursop Nutrition.
Be Me stands for Beyond Medicine, and that's the parent company, right?
And Be Me is about getting back to feeling your normal self, being your normal self. So we originally, the final tip, if you're ever thinking about going to exit, you never want to lock yourself into a single ingredient. That cost me quite a bit of evaluation with Cali'Flour Foods. So we started with Soursop Nutrition because nobody knew what Soursop was. So it was an SEO play. But really, the company was always filed under Be Me Beyond Medicine. So we're transitioning. Now that we've done a year of education on Soursop, you can plug in soursopnutrition.com, but it'll go to Be Me. And then if you type in Something New 20, all caps, you'll get 20% off.
Thank you.
Yes. And
You're the best.
It's 100% guarantee. So if you don't like it for some reason, DM me. I answer all my DMs.
She actually does, you guys. I was with her last night, and she was replying to DMs in real time. Like this morning, you worked on 200 responses, and I'm like, Amy.
They wanted my SWOT analysis.
I know.
If you DM me, I'll send you my SWOT analysis. It's pretty cool. It's how I make all my business decisions and a lot of personal decisions. But I'm Hey Amy Lacey, HEY, Amy Lacey, LACEY.
Love it.
And I will answer the DMs.
That's so nice of you to give us a discount code. You're the best. Well, you guys, this is such a fun conversation around business, motherhood.
Life.
I mean, life. You have really, modeled that it is possible to have a career. You and your husband's a doctor. You guys both full-time career, raising your kids. Now, I know you would say you haven't done it perfectly.
No.
But you have learned a lot. You prioritize family dinner. Your kids are still in relationship with you. I mean, you're doing something right. So
we have a phenomenal relationship with our kids, and we talked a lot about families. And I will say there's studies out there, eat dinner with your family, no matter what, at least 5 times a week. I know everybody has hectic schedules. Sometimes we're eating at 4 PM, sometimes 9 o'clock at night.
And we're going to do that together at 4 o'clock today.
Yay!
Yes, but no, that was really good
really
wisdom to say, hey, make family dinner a priority. Yeah. So if you guys love this episode, please comment, like it, subscribe, tell your friends about it, and check out Amy's new product and her new venture. I'm so excited for you. All right, we'll see you guys next time on the Something New Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, review, and share with a friend. Also, follow The Something New Show on Instagram and Facebook. If you want a fuller experience, watch the show on YouTube to help you create a life worth celebrating.